Welcome back, fiber friends. This is part 3 of the Lonka Accessories line knit along. Alright, this is video 3, the last video for the Lonka Accessories line knit along. I'm super excited because this is my favorite piece to make, which is the Lonka Reversible Cowl. What I love about it so much is that you get to wear it as a solid or as the ferrule that it is. We get to knit an inside cover. I will go through step by step on how to do that by picking up stitches at the very end once we knitted the front part of it. And then I also have a quick tip on how to properly block these cowls once we are done. So sit back, grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab your wine, grab your liquor, whatever you're drinking, and let's get started with the Lonka KAL. For my Lonka KAL, I'm using green as contrasting color C, blue as contrasting color B, mustard as main color, and white as contrasting color A. In today's video, we will go step by step on how to make the Lonka Reversible Cowl. But before we begin, I just want to talk a little bit about the design and why I designed this cowl as reversible. The first reason why is because it just looks really cool if we had a single side. No, but seriously, I wanted to give you guys an option on how to wear the cowl, whether you wanted to wear it as a ferrule piece, or if you wanted, you can turn it inside out and wear it as a solid color with a really cool edge on it. But the real reason why I designed it this way was to cover up the floats. And the reason why is because so many times if we're wearing jewelry, say earrings, whether they're studs or hoops, or if we're wearing a necklace with a charm on it, sometimes our jewelry will get caught onto the floats of our work. So to avoid that, I wanted to create this inner layer to cover up the floats so that didn't happen. So with that said, we'll get started on casting on for the Lonka KAL. Okay, so let's begin. So with your US 10 32-inch circular needles, you're going to take your main color and you're going to cast on 96 stitches. Now I'm using the long tail cast on, which is a stretchy cast on method that I use for everything, and in video 1 I give an explanation on how to do that. So if you want detailed explanation on how to do the German twist cast on, as I'm doing here, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and hop to video number 1, part 1, and at the very beginning I explain on how to do the German twist cast on. So you're going to go ahead and cast on 96 stitches, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so I just casted on my stitches. I added an extra stitch, so instead of 96 I casted on 97, and I explained this in my other videos as to why I do that when I do my join. Is because we're gonna lose that first stitch on the left needle. So working yarn should be on your right needle, and then the other end is going to be on your left needle. We're gonna go ahead and take the tip of our right needle and transfer that first stitch onto the right needle, and then we're going to take the stitch right behind the one we just transferred and pass that over and drop it off. Then we're going to take that stitch that we transferred before and put it right back onto our left needle. Then we're going to go ahead and tighten up the ends so that we create that nice clean join. I love this joining in the round this way, just because the edge is super clean. You can't see a knot, none of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and have you guys work on rounds 1 through 9 there, and we'll come back and I'll explain to you the next step. Okay, so we just completed the garter stitch bottom edge, and now we are ready to work on the chart. Before we do that, I just want to mention real quick with regards to the garter stitch bottom edge, eventually what we're going to be doing later on is rolling that and then seaming it to create that rolled edge that I showed you guys earlier. But for now, we're going to go ahead and work on the chart, and the next thing I'd like to show you is how to join the next color. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about before joining new color into our work is how to properly read charts. So I mentioned this in video 1 and 2, that we read charts from right to left and then we go up. Okay, so starting with round 1, my green is going to be white, and my red here is going to be mustard. So it'll be white, mustard, and so on and so forth. I also tell you guys, as you're working your rounds, just check off. Make sure we check them off so that we don't get lost in our work. So the next thing I want to show you is how to add new color. All right. And again, I mentioned this in the other videos, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat it again. Typically, most knitters just pick up and they start knitting with the new color. However, I find this trick to be helpful, where I just take my new color onto my main color and I just tie a simple knot. And I want to draw that knot all the way to the top of my needle. And the reason why I do that is because that first stitch that I knit, it won't be a loose stitch. And usually when you just pick up and start knitting with the new color, that's what happens in your work. That first stitch gets really loose. So reading my chart, my first stitch is going to be white, followed by mustard. And this is where I like to stop and tell you to make sure that you're carrying your yarn in the same direction always. So my mustard is going to go underneath the white, white is going to go over the mustard, mustard under the white, white over mustard, mustard over under white. Now notice I'm not tugging on my yarn every time I switch colors. As knitters tend to do, we tug every time we switch to a new color or just to the next stitch or the end of the round. When we work Fair Isle, we don't want to tug. We want to make sure that our work is loose, and the reason why is because your floats, if they're tight, they're going to bunch up, and we don't want that. It's going to be really tough to undo that later on. Sometimes even with blocking, we may not undo that bunching up, depending on how tight of a knitter you are. So just make sure that you carry your floats the same direction. Also, don't tug every time you switch colors. All right, so go ahead, work rounds 1 through 6, and then we'll pause there. Okay, so we just completed round 6, and now we're about to work on round 7. Now you'll notice that I circled rounds 7, 9, 11, 16, 18, and 20. And the reason why is because these are going to be the rounds that we are going to bring the row below onto our current row. So what happens in our knitting is that when we're knitting in the rounds, we're basically knitting in a spiral, right? So basically our work is never going to meet up head on. When you look at your rounds, your rows will never be straight on because we are knitting in a spiral. So they're going to be shifted a little bit. So in order to bring the row below to the current row that we're working on, we have to bring that up, and we do a little technique in knitting where we pick up from the stitch below and match it up with the current row. So the way we do that is we're going to take the stitch below, which is going to be my white stitch, and I'm going to raise the right bar, and I'm going to lift that right bar onto my left needle. Let me do that again. So with the stitch below, which is going to be the white, now we're working the new round, right? So this is my first stitch. I'm going to take the stitch below, right below that, and I'm going to take the right bar, and I'm going to lift that right bar onto my left needle. Then I'm going to knit those two stitches together. And so what that does is it'll bring up the row below to match with the current row. And so you're going to go ahead and you're going to work the chart. And I just want you to do this technique with rows round 7, 9, 11, 16, 18, and 20. We will stop at the chart once we finish round 25. Okay, so you should be done by now with your chart. I went ahead and I skipped ahead a little bit and I completed not only the chart work, but I also completed the garter stitch top edge. So I went ahead and I bound off and I wove in all the loose ends. So you want to go ahead and do that before we seam the edges here. So the next step is the rolled edges. Now to do the rolled edges, you're going to turn your cowl inside out. And with your tapestry needle, we're going to go ahead and seam together the edges. So what you want to do is, if you're looking on the top here, and you'll see this top row, these white floats here, we're going to roll the edge in just till we hit right above that, that edge there. So it's right above your last floats. Okay, so what you're gonna do, you're gonna pick up and you're gonna see these little V's right here. These little V's right here, that's what we're working on. So we're gonna pick up, we already have our first on, and so we're gonna pick up. And if you look at your garter stitch, it's always going to be the bottom stitch. You see you got the bottom, and then you have the top here. We're going for that bottom one, okay? So you're going to roll this in. You're going to go from underneath that bottom stitch. And my tails are really long. And then you're going to go into this from the outside in, that first V. So we're doing the matcher stitch here. Let's see, okay. We're going to pick up the bottom stitch. Remember, we're going we're right underneath that last float there. And then you're going to move to the next little, I like to call them little V's, from the outside in. And you don't want to pull too tight just yet. You want to keep it loose. And we're going into our next one. Remember, always the bottom stitch. And then followed by your next V right here. So basically it's like we're tying shoelaces. It's like when you're lacing up your sneakers or your shoes, it forms that little zigzag. That's what we're looking for. So outside in, okay? And then when you have about when you've done 3 of those, or let's say 4, that's when you're going to pull really, really tight. Okay? So for every 3 to 4 stitches, you'll go ahead and you'll tug on that. Okay, then we move on to the next one. Picking up that V. Next one here. Right here. We're just going to continue this all the way around. Remember that you want to do about 3 to 4 stitches before you tug. So I'm about to do that right now. And you can see how loose they are. That's how loose you want to stay. And then you just pull and tighten. And so just to give you an idea of what that's going to start looking like on the outside, there's your rolled edge. So I'm going to have you guys continue that all the way around. And then you're going to repeat the same process on the other end, doing the same thing. And if you guys forget, just rewind the video a little bit and it'll show all just to kind of repeat the process again. All right, so once you've done both edges, come back and then I will show you guys how to pick up stitches and begin knitting the inside cover. Okay, so now that I have my rolled edges finished, I seamed them, we are ready to begin knitting the inside cover to cover up the floats. So what you want to do is you want to turn your cowl inside out. Now you're going to notice that it's curling really badly, but we're going to take care of that later on after we finish knitting the inside cover. I'll go through the whole blocking process and show you guys how to properly block your piece after we've knitted the inside cover. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to measure the inside, and you're going to want to measure from the very edge up here, this edge, to the bottom, and it should be about 6 inches. Okay, now in the instructions I say that we're going to pick up 96 stitches on the top here, which I'll show you in a minute, and we're going to knit 1 inch less than 6 inches. So that's going to give us 5 inches. And the reason why I say that is because when we are knitting stockinette, it tends to be very stretchy. So about 5 inches should be good enough when you're knitting the inside cover. So after we pick up the stitches and start knitting, you want to knit down for about 5 inches of stockinette. Now to pick up your stitches, do you see these little stitches right here? All right, these little stitches are the ones we're going to be using to pick up and knit with. Okay, and you can see it on the other end as well, just to give you guys a sense of where we're at. It's right here. So this is what your work should look like after you've seamed it, and we're picking up that first loop right underneath the seam. Okay, and so we're going to cover up all these floats, and so we're picking up 96. So with your needle and your yarn, okay, so remember we're picking up those loops right underneath the first set of floats, and we're going to pick up 96 stitches. So you'll continue this all the way around. Don't forget, we want to knit 5 inches for the inside cover in stockinette. Once you've knitted 5 inches, again, the inside should measure 6 inches. If yours is shorter than 6 inches, maybe let's say it's 5 inches, it's probably because you're a tight knitter. So then just remember to subtract 1 inch, and that's what you're going to be knitting as far as the inside cover is concerned. All right, so go ahead, pick up your 96 stitches on the inside, knit 5 inches, and then stop there, and then I'll show you guys how to seam the ends. Okay, so I just finished knitting the inside cover to the cowl, and first thing I want to do is I want to measure my knitting here. So I have, for the inside cover, I do have a little over 5 inches, so it's about 5.5 inches. That's okay. Again, when I measured the cowl earlier, I measured from here to here, to this very edge here. So it measured about 6 inches. So 5.5 inches is fine. I say either about a half an inch to an inch should be okay, because the material does stretch. So now what we need to do is we need to seam this top of the inside cover to the very top of the cowl, okay, so that we can cover up those floats. So I have my handy little tapestry needle here ready to go, and this time I'm going to show you how to, still using the mattress stitch, we're going to be picking up a different stitch, however. So looking at your rolled edge here, you'll notice right down here, you'll see your seam. Okay, this is where we sewed the rolled edge before, and right below that we have this little guy right here, the loop, this little, what looks like a purl stitch. Now if you separate the material, the fabric, from your seam line to that bottom stitch, you'll see that little V formation. I'm going to pick that up real quick here. That little V, see that? That's what we're going to be using to seam the other end with. Okay, so again, looking at your fabric, you're going to have to do some stretching here a little bit, but if you go between where you seamed it the last time for the rolled edge to that first stitch down here, you'll see that V hiding underneath. I'll show you that. So it's 2 little bars. Oops, so hold on, let's see, it's 2 little bars. That's going to be your V. So you're going to be, that's what you're going to be using to seam each end. Okay, and you can see it here. Here's the next one, and so on and so forth. So you kind of have to dig a little bit, but this is going to give you the clean finish to your cowl. So we'll start at the top. I'm going to find that first stitch, and you want to try to match it up as close to, so that it's all lined up properly. So we're going to go right here. And then you're going to go right into this stitch right here. Again, looking for that little V. Onto the next stitch, which is right here. Again, you're going to have to dig a little bit, so make sure you have bright light. Okay. My next stitch, remember always to go from the outside in. And you're going to do this for about, I would say, 3 to 4 stitches. And again, keep your weaving very loose. You want to keep it loose. You don't want to do it, you don't want to cinch it. So make sure that you keep it loose all the time. Okay, so I just did my 4th stitch. I want to show you what that looks like up close, the zigzag. And now I'm ready to pull really tightly. And if you look, you get that nice clean line. Can't even tell. All right, so you're going to continue that. Again, do 3 to 4 stitches at a time and then pull. Finish your cowl, and then when we come back, I will show you how to properly block your cowl. Okay, so I just finished seaming the inside cover to the top edge of my cowl, and I just wanted to stop here and show you guys what your inside should look like. Okay, now there's only one last thing we need to do, and that's to block. Now you may, if you don't want to block, you don't really have to. Like for instance here, I'm okay with not blocking it, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys in the next clip how to properly block, just so that you guys can block your pieces properly. There is a certain way on blocking this, and I'm more concerned about the edge down here, and how to pin that down to the mat or to your towel. So in the next clip, I will show you how to block. Okay, so to block your cowl, the first thing you want to do is you want to soak your garment in room temperature water. It could be in a sink, it could be in a basin, but you want to have it submerged in water for about 20 minutes, and then you want to remove the cowl and completely drain of the cowl. Now, when you're taking the excess water out, usually what I like to do inside the sink or in the basin, I like to just fold it in half in the sink and just press down and squeeze out the water, and then I'll lift it up, and then what I usually do is I'll squeeze it this way. Okay, I usually squeeze it that way. What you don't want to do when trying to remove the water is wring it. You don't want to do that. That's the last thing you want to do to your cowl or to any piece that you just knitted. What you end up doing is you end up breaking up the fibers. So again, I am not gonna block. I didn't submerge mine into water because I'm okay with the way it looks. Depending on how the edges look, what I'm more concerned of, if it looks like it's curling a little bit, that's when we definitely want to block it. So again, make sure that if you are going to block it, just submerge it in water for about 20 minutes, room temperature water, and then remove the water, and then you're again in the sink or in the basin, you're going to fold it in half, you're going to squeeze down and squeeze out the water that way, and then take a towel, and with your towel just lay this on top of the towel, fold the towel over, and then press down to remove the other water. Once that's ready, once you've done that, then you're going to place it on a mat. Now, if you guys don't have blocking mats, a towel can work for you. I prefer using a blocking mat because we're going to be pinning this down. So great investment. And if you don't want to buy blocking mats, if you go to any toy section in a department store, they sell these play mats, and you can get them from really cheap. So you don't have to go out spending a lot of money on blocking mats. You can always go to a toy store where they sell floor mats for kids, and you don't need to buy that many. You can buy a bundle of like maybe 5 or 6, and that's all you really need. So today I'm going to be using Knitter's Pride Rainbow Knit Blockers. These are great to block with. They're pins, well, needles I should say, and these are really great. So once you've laid out your cowl, you want to make sure everything is nice and straight, and then we're going to start pinning. So we always start on the edges here. Now, when you're pinning your edges, you don't want to pin on the edge itself, on the rolled edge. We want to keep that element. So what I do is I go right above, and I'm going to zoom in, see if I can zoom in here. I go right above that edge and I pin it. Zoom out. And so you're going to do that all along. But what you don't want to do is that you don't want to get at the very edge here. You don't want to do that. And the reason why is because we don't want to form a crease here. So to avoid that crease, what I like to do is I like to give it a little bit of a stretch. And I like to just pin it there as well. So that's where we're going to pin. Okay. And the same thing goes on the top. So you always want to make sure that you're pinning on the top, right underneath the lip of the rolled edge. And then the same thing here. You just want to, again, you want to pin it so that it's not on the very edge. Now, if you don't have blocking mats, then what I suggest you doing is just getting pins. T-pins would work really good, and pinning it to your towel. Okay, you're gonna have that sit down for about, I would say, 24 hours. You want to make sure that it sets for 24 hours. If you, even after a day it seems a little damp, keep it there. You want to keep it there until it is completely dry, and that should take care of your edges. That's a wrap. We are done with video 3, guys. I'm super excited because I had a blast doing these videos, and I hope you did too. I hope you got to learn something new. I hope you had a good time. I know some of you have been joining me on the Zoom calls, and that's always a treat because we get to ask, you know, sometimes we ask questions with regards to the videos, or sometimes we just talk. That's what it's all about. It's all about community based for me, and this is what we're doing. We're building a community here, and that's what these knit-alongs do for me. It's building community with you guys. So I want to thank you for participating in my second knit-along. I got another knit-along coming up this year. Hopefully for the fall, I'll have something new for you guys. I'm always looking for something new and something different. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll be announcing that later on in the year. Until then, if you have any questions with regards to today's video or any of the videos that I put up for this knit-along, feel free to email me at brooklynboyknits@gmail.com, or you can reach me on social media on Instagram as brooklynboyknits, or Facebook Brooklyn Boy Knits. Once again, thank you for joining me on this journey, and I hope you had a wonderful time. So until next time, happy knitting.